People passed the old man like he was invisible, until a black teenager on a bike stopped, took his hand, and changed both of their lives forever. It was supposed to be just another ride home. The late afternoon sun stretched long, golden lines across the cracked pavement of Maple Avenue in Dayton, Ohio, and the air still smelled faintly of gasoline and fried food from the corner station. Darius Coleman, 17, pedaled his old blue bike through the noise. Cars honking, kids shouting, a stray dog barking somewhere near the alley. He had one earbud in, the other dangling, and a grocery bag hanging off the handlebar with a loaf of bread peeking out. He wasn't in a hurry. Darius rarely was. Life had taught him that when you move too fast, you miss things, like the sound of his mom humming when she cooked, or the way the air cooled right before sunset. He'd just clocked out from his shift at Harper's Market, a tiny store where he stocked shelves after school. The pay wasn't great, but it helped with the bills, and honestly, Darius liked feeling useful. He coasted past the same corners he always did: the old laundromat, the bus stop with a faded bench, the thrift shop with a handwritten "closing soon" sign in the window. Everything looked the same, until he saw him. An old man stood near the crosswalk, staring around like the world had suddenly turned foreign. His suit looked like something from another time, neat but wrinkled like he'd been walking for hours. One hand trembled as he clutched a brown leather briefcase, and every few seconds he muttered something under his breath. People passed him without a glance. A couple laughed as they walked by, pretending not to notice. A woman in heels slowed down, frowned, then kept walking. But Darius's foot automatically eased off the pedal. He circled once, then stopped at the curb. "Hey, you okay, sir?" he called out. The man didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked from Darius to the street sign above them, then back again. I'm trying to find my house," he said softly. His voice cracked like he hadn't used it much. "I know it's near here, but I can't remember which way." Something in his tone hit Darius hard. The man didn't look like he belonged on the street. His shoes were clean, his shirt ironed, but his confusion looked real. Darius leaned his bike against the pole. "Maybe I can help you find it," he said. The man hesitated, gripping his briefcase tighter. "You'd do that?" Darius shrugged. "Yeah, why not?" But what Darius didn't know was that stopping that day, right there on Maple Avenue, was about to change everything he thought he knew about luck, kindness, and the way people judge what they don't understand. Darius had never really thought of himself as a hero. He was just a kid from the west side of Dayton, trying to graduate high school, stay out of trouble, and help his mom keep the lights on. His world was small but steady: school, work, church on Sundays, and long rides through the neighborhood when he needed to clear his head. His mom, Carla Coleman, worked nights at the hospital cafeteria. She'd raised him alone since his dad left when Darius was 6. She didn't have much, but she made sure he always had enough. Enough food, enough warmth, enough belief that good things still existed in the world. Her voice echoed in his head often. "Don't walk past someone who needs help, baby. Even if you can't fix it, at least you tried." That was the kind of thing that stuck with Darius. He looked at the old man again, small frame, thinning gray hair, and a lost look that didn't match the clean clothes or fancy leather shoes. The briefcase he clutched looked expensive, the kind you'd see in movies. "Do you remember the street name?" Darius asked, pushing his bike closer. The man squinted at the sign above the crosswalk. "It was something with a W. Willow. No, Whitaker? I'm not sure." He looked so embarrassed that Darius felt bad even asking. "Okay," Darius said, thinking. "How long have you been out here?" The man shook his head slowly. "Since this morning, I think. I took a walk after breakfast. My driver... I told him I'd be fine. Guess I wasn't." He tried to laugh, but it came out weak, almost apologetic. Darius frowned. "Your driver?" The man nodded, but before Darius could ask more, the old man's face tightened with frustration, like he was fighting to remember something he'd lost in his own mind. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just need to get home." My wife must be worried." Darius felt his chest tighten. He didn't know what it was like to lose your memory, but he knew what fear looked like. And that man had it written all over his face. "Okay, no problem," Darius said, trying to sound calm. "You want to hop on the back of my bike? We'll ride slow. Maybe you'll recognize something." The man blinked, surprised. "You'd do that for me?" Darius grinned. I mean, it's not a limo, but it moves. For the first time, the man smiled, a small, tired smile that softened his whole face. My name's Walter, he said, extending a trembling hand. Darius, the teen replied, shaking it gently. Nice to meet you, Walter. They started down the street, Walter sitting carefully on the small rack behind the seat, holding on to Darius's shoulder as the bike wobbled forward. It must have looked ridiculous, a teenager pedaling an old bike with a gray-haired man in a wrinkled suit clinging on for dear life. But Darius didn't care. People stared, but he was used to that. Is this the right way? Darius asked as they passed a row of old houses. Walter glanced around. Maybe. I remember a bakery. Or was it a bank? I used to come here years ago. They went block by block, turning corners, stopping every few minutes so Walter could look around. Sometimes he'd point at something, a mailbox, a tree, a red door, and whisper, I think I've seen that before. Other times, he'd just stare into the distance, quiet and confused. Darius didn't rush him. He just kept pedaling, letting the rhythm of the wheels fill the silence. At one stop, Walter said softly, You remind me of my grandson. Oh yeah? Darius asked. He live around here? Walter shook his head. No, he's gone now. The air went still for a second. Darius didn't ask what he meant. Some silences didn't need to be filled. After a few more turns, they came across a small park. The evening light painted everything orange and gold. Kids were playing basketball, and parents sat on benches scrolling their phones. Nobody seemed to notice the strange pair riding by. A young black teen helping an old white man find his way home. Darius didn't know it yet, but someone was watching. A man in a black sedan parked across the street had his phone in hand, snapping a photo through the windshield. He frowned, typed something, and made a call. But while Darius pedaled on, focused on getting Walter home, that phone call was already setting events in motion that neither of them could have imagined. The neighborhood began to change the farther they went, from small brick houses with flower beds to quiet streets lined with tall fences and freshly cut lawns. Darius noticed the shift but didn't say anything. He was more focused on keeping the bike steady while Walter held on behind him. Every bump made the old man flinch a little, but he never complained. After a while, Darius stopped near a convenience store to grab a couple of water bottles. The heat had settled heavy in the air, the kind that made your shirt cling to your back. He handed one bottle to Walter, who looked grateful but hesitant. You sure about this? Walter asked. You don't even know me. Darius shrugged, twisting the cap off his bottle. Guess I don't need to. You looked like you needed help, that's all. Walter studied him, the lines around his eyes softening. Not many people stop anymore, he said. Everyone's got somewhere to be, something to prove. Darius laughed lightly. Yeah, tell me about it. Folks act like helping someone's going to cost them their paycheck. Walter smiled, taking a small sip. You sound older than 17. Guess growing up with bills will do that to you, Darius said. Mom works nights. I try to help where I can. For a moment, the two just sat there on the curb, a teenager in scuffed sneakers and a man in an expensive but rumpled suit, sipping water in silence as cars passed by. The contrast was almost poetic, though neither of them saw it that way. Walter suddenly pointed down the street. That looks familiar. The tall gate with the stone pillars. Maybe that's it. All right, Darius said, hopping back on the bike. Let's check it out. As they rolled closer, Darius noticed the gate had an intercom and a plaque that read, Grayson Estate. The name didn't mean anything to him, but Walter's eyes widened. Yes, Walter said softly. This is it. He sounded relieved, almost emotional. Before Darius could even respond, a black SUV pulled up fast behind them. Two men in suits jumped out, their expressions tense. One of them called out, Mr. Grayson! Walter froze. Darius instinctively stepped in front of him. Hey, what's going on? He demanded. The taller man, clearly some kind of security, lifted his hands calmly. We've been looking for him all day. He wandered off during his walk this morning. He turned to Walter. Sir, are you okay? Mrs. Grayson's been worried sick. Walter's face softened in recognition. I'm fine, he said slowly. This young man helped me. Darius glanced between them, unsure what to think. You guys his family or something? The other guard nodded. We work for him. Mr. Grayson owns this property. You really didn't know? Darius blinked. Owns this. He turned to Walter, confused. Wait, you live here? Walter gave a faint smile. I suppose I do. The gate buzzed open, and the guards helped him inside. Darius followed a few steps behind, pushing his bike awkwardly, feeling suddenly out of place. The driveway was long and perfectly paved, leading up to a massive white house with columns and a fountain in the front yard. The kind of house he had only seen in magazines or movies. Walter turned back toward him. You'll come in, won't you? I don't know if I should, Darius said, hesitating. This looks like a place that'd call the cops if I step on the grass. Walter chuckled, the first real laugh he'd given all day. You helped me when nobody else did. The least I can do is offer you something to eat. Inside, the air smelled like polished wood and lemon cleaner. Paintings hung on the walls, and sunlight streamed through tall windows. Darius looked around, trying not to gawk. A woman appeared from the hallway, her eyes red and puffy. She rushed to Walter, wrapping her arms around him. Walter, where have you been? We've been terrified. Walter smiled weakly. I'm sorry, Margaret. I lost my way, but this young man here made sure I got home safe. Her gaze shifted to Darius. She hesitated, not out of rudeness, but confusion. You helped him? Yes, ma'am, Darius said softly. Just found him by the bus stop. She blinked, clearly trying to take in the image of a sweaty teenager with a bike standing in her pristine foyer. Then she nodded slowly. Thank you, truly. Walter reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. You ride this way often? He asked. Yeah, pretty much every day. Good, Walter said, because I'd like to see you again. Darius smiled awkwardly, unsure if the man meant it or was just being polite. He tucked the card into his pocket anyway, but that card, a simple business card with nothing but a name and number, would end up changing the entire course of Darius's life. The next morning, Darius sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the white card Walter had given him. It was simple, just Walter H. Grayson in black letters, embossed like something from a luxury brand. No address, just a phone number. His mom, Carla, was standing at the stove flipping pancakes, watching him with a knowing look. You gonna call him or just burn a hole in that thing with your eyes? She asked, half smiling. Darius shrugged. I don't know, Mom. Guy's probably busy. Didn't even know he was rich when I helped him. Carla turned, spatula in hand. Baby, sometimes the people who seem to have everything are the ones who need the most kindness. Maybe you should call. Doesn't cost you anything to be polite. She was right. She usually was. After breakfast, Darius stepped outside with his phone, heart thudding a little faster than usual. He didn't expect anyone to answer, but after 2 rings, a calm voice said, Grayson residence. Hi, Darius said. This is Darius Coleman. I helped Mr. Grayson yesterday. Oh, yes, the woman said, her tone brightening. Mr. Grayson's been talking about you all morning. Hold on, please. There was a pause, then a familiar voice came through. Darius, my boy. I was hoping you'd call hey, Mr. Grayson, Darius said, smiling despite himself. Just wanted to make sure you're doing okay. I'm much better, Walter replied, but I was wondering if you'd like to come by this afternoon. There's something I'd like to show you, Darius hesitated. Sure, I guess. I can stop by after work. Excellent. I'll have my driver pick you up that afternoon. A sleek black sedan pulled up in front of Darius's building. His mom peeked out the window, eyebrows raised. Boy, don't forget where you came from, she teased. I won't, he promised, grabbing his backpack. The car ride felt surreal. Tinted windows, soft seats, the faint smell of leather. By the time they reached the Grayson estate, Darius still wasn't used to it. Walter was waiting for him on the porch, wearing a cardigan and a gentle smile. I wasn't sure you'd come, Walter said. I almost didn't, Darius admitted. Didn't think I belonged in a place like this. Walter chuckled softly. You belong wherever kindness is needed, son. That's rarer than money these days. Inside, Walter led him down a hallway lined with photos. Walter as a young man, his wife, his 2 children, business meetings, charity events. Darius recognized him from a news article pinned on a corkboard near the kitchen. Local billionaire donates $10 million to Children's Hospital. Wait, Darius said, stopping. You're that guy? The hospital one? Walter smiled. Guilty as charged. They sat in the garden out back, where birds hopped across the stone path and a fountain trickled softly. Walter poured lemonade into 2 glasses and leaned back. You know, Darius, yesterday reminded me of something I'd forgotten. When people used to look me in the eye and talk to me like I mattered, not like a headline or a bank account. Darius nodded slowly. Guess people see what they want to see. Exactly, Walter said. When I was your age, I didn't have much either. I sold newspapers on a corner not far from here. Folks ignored me too, until one man stopped, asked my name, and gave me my first real job. That changed my life. He turned toward Darius. Yesterday, you reminded me of him. Darius looked down a little embarrassed. I just didn't want to see you standing there lost. Anybody would have done the same. Walter smiled. No, Darius. They didn't. I saw them walk by. You were the only one who stopped. They sat quietly for a moment, the breeze shifting the leaves overhead. Then Walter said, Tell me about yourself. What do you want to do after school? Darius thought about it. I've always liked fixing things. Bikes, appliances, anything mechanical. I'm good with my hands. But college, that's expensive. Walter's eyes glinted. What if it wasn't? Darius blinked. What do you mean? I mean, Walter said carefully, what if someone believed in you enough to make sure money wasn't the reason you didn't chase your dreams? Darius frowned. You don't have to do that for me. I know I don't, Walter replied, but I want to. You helped me when no one else did. Sometimes life gives us a chance to return that kindness. It took a few seconds for the words to sink in. Darius sat back, stunned. He didn't know whether to thank him or laugh from disbelief. Walter chuckled at his expression. Think about it, he said. No rush. Just promise me one thing. When your turn comes, you'll help someone else who needs it. No cameras, no attention. Just help. Darius nodded slowly. I can promise that. As the afternoon sun faded, Walter's driver pulled up to take Darius home. He looked out the window as the Grayson estate disappeared behind the trees. He couldn't explain it, but something in his life felt different now. Bigger, somehow. But what neither Darius nor Walter knew was that fate wasn't done with them yet. The next encounter between the two would test everything they thought they knew about trust, truth, and gratitude. 2 weeks passed before Darius heard from Walter again. Life had gone back to its steady rhythm. School, work, late dinners with his mom. But now, every time he pedaled down Maple Avenue, he couldn't help but glance toward that gate. Then, one afternoon, while stocking cereal boxes at Harper's Market, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Darius, my boy. Walter's cheerful voice filled the line. I was starting to think you'd forgotten about me. Darius laughed. Nah, sir. Just been busy. What's up? I'm hosting a small gathering tonight, Walter said. Some friends, family, colleagues. I'd like you to come. Darius hesitated. A party? I don't know, Mr. Grayson. I don't have fancy clothes or anything. Walter chuckled. Don't worry about that. Just come as you are. You're my guest. That evening, Darius showed up in his cleanest jeans and a button-up shirt his mom ironed for him. She gave him a quick hug before he left. Remember, be yourself. That's all you ever need to be. The Grayson mansion looked even larger at night. Dozens of cars filled the driveway, and soft music drifted through the open doors. Darius felt out of place the second he walked in. Waiters moved gracefully with trays of drinks, and guests laughed in clusters, wearing clothes that looked like they cost more than his mom's car. Walter spotted him right away. There he is. Everyone, this is Darius Coleman, the young man who saved me. Heads turned, conversations paused. Darius felt every eye in the room shift toward him. Some smiled politely, others looked skeptical. A tall man with slicked back hair stepped forward. You mean to tell us this teenager just found you wandering around? Walter smiled. That's right. When everyone else ignored me, he stopped. That's what matters. The man chuckled, a bit too loud. Well, Mr. Grayson, you've always had a soft spot for good stories. Walter's wife, Margaret, shot the man a sharp glance. That's enough, Charles. But Darius wasn't angry. He just stood quietly, holding his hands together. Walter noticed and placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't mind him. Some people can't see kindness unless there's something in it for them. Later that night, after the crowd thinned, Walter led Darius to his study. The room was lined with books and old photos, moments of a long, full life. Walter sat down behind his desk and pulled open a drawer. I've been thinking, he said. You told me you liked fixing things. I made a few calls. There's an apprenticeship opening at a mechanical engineering firm downtown. It's competitive, but I've already spoken to the director. Darius froze. Wait, what? Walter slid a folder across the desk. If you're interested, it's yours. Darius picked it up, flipping through the papers. Internship forms, schedules, salary details. His throat tightened. Mr. Grayson, I can't take this. It's too much nonsense, Walter said gently. You earned it. Not for helping me, for being who you are, honest, kind, rare. Darius didn't know what to say. His eyes stung a little, and he quickly blinked it away. Thank you, sir. I won't waste it. Walter smiled. I know you won't. Just then, there was a knock on the door. A young woman peeked in. Walter's daughter, Elaine Grayson, tall and elegant, with the same calm eyes as her father. Dad, the doctor's on the phone. Walter sighed. Always worrying about me, he said with a soft chuckle. Elaine smiled kindly at Darius. You must be Darius. My father talks about you nonstop. Thank you for what you did. Darius nodded. Glad he's okay. She turned to her father. You shouldn't overexert yourself. I'm fine, Walter insisted. Then after a pause, he looked at Darius. Come by again soon. I'd like to keep our talks going. Count on it, Darius said. When he left that night, the air felt lighter somehow. He didn't just feel like a stranger who helped someone. He felt like he'd found a friend, a mentor even. He pedaled home under the streetlights, the folder safely tucked in his backpack, the sound of Walter's voice replaying in his head. But by morning, everything would change again. This time in a way that would break Darius's heart, before healing it in a way he'd never forget. The next morning started like any other. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen, the radio hummed low in the background, and sunlight poured through the thin curtains. Darius sat at the table, still half asleep, flipping through the internship papers Walter had given him the night before. His mom looked over his shoulder, impressed. Wow, Carla said softly. This is real, baby. You're gonna work downtown? Looks like it, Darius said, trying not to grin too hard. He said he'd help with the first few months. Carla smiled, pride filling her voice. That man's got an angel's heart. You make sure you thank him properly. I will, Darius promised. But that afternoon, as he was about to leave for work, his phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but something in his gut told him to answer. Hello? Is this Darius Coleman? A woman's voice asked, tight with emotion. Yes, ma'am. This is Elaine Grayson. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but my father passed away early this morning. Darius froze. For a second, it didn't register. Passed away? No, that can't be. I just saw him last night. I know, she said quietly. It was peaceful. He fell asleep in his chair. The doctor said it was quick. The line went silent for a moment, except for Elaine's unsteady breathing. Darius swallowed hard, the paper still in his hand, shaking slightly. He talked about you before he went to bed, Elaine continued. He said helping you reminded him that kindness still exists. He was grateful. Darius didn't know what to say. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. He changed my life. He really did. I know, she whispered. And he didn't forget you. My father left something for you. Could you come by later today? That evening, the Grayson home was quieter than he'd ever seen it. No music, no laughter, just the low murmur of relatives talking in hushed tones. Elaine greeted him at the door, her eyes red from crying. Thank you for coming, she said softly. She handed him a sealed envelope, thick and neatly folded. He wrote this yesterday. Said it was important. Darius took it carefully and stepped outside to read. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Darius, if you're reading this, my time has come to rest. Don't be sad. I've lived a long life. What you did for me that day on Maple Avenue meant more than you can imagine. You reminded me of who I used to be before money and titles got in the way. I've made arrangements for your apprenticeship and your first year of college to be covered. Consider it an investment. Not in your education, but in your heart. Keep helping people, even when no one's watching. That's what matters most. Your friend, Walter H. Grayson. Darius stood there for a long time, the words sinking in slowly. He folded the letter carefully, like it was made of glass, and slipped it into his jacket pocket. When he got home, his mom hugged him tight. Neither of them spoke for a while. They didn't have to. That night, Darius sat on his bike outside, looking up at the stars. The same streets, the same route. But everything felt different now. The world seemed bigger, like he'd been given a map to a life he hadn't dared to dream about before. He took a deep breath, whispering to the night, "I'll make you proud, Mr. Grayson." But the story didn't end there, because what Walter left behind wasn't just money or opportunity. It was a seed planted deep in Darius's heart, one that would keep growing every time he chose kindness over comfort and compassion over convenience. Months later, the world had moved on, but Darius hadn't forgotten. Every morning before work, he still rode down Maple Avenue, the same path where he first saw Walter standing alone by that crosswalk. He didn't take the bus, even when he could afford it now. The bike reminded him where it all began. The apprenticeship downtown turned out better than he ever imagined. The people there respected him for his work ethic and curiosity. He was learning how to repair and design things that mattered. Elevators, engines, medical equipment, real machines that helped people live easier. But it wasn't the job that changed him. It was the lesson. Sometimes, when he saw someone struggling, a woman trying to lift her groceries, a kid with a broken skateboard, he'd stop, just like he stopped for Walter. Not because he wanted to be noticed, but because it was the right thing to do. One evening, as he left work, he saw a man standing by a bench near the bus stop, staring at a torn piece of paper in his hands. He looked lost. Darius hesitated for half a second, then walked over. "Hey, you good?" he asked. The man looked up, startled. "I think I missed my stop." "I don't know this part of town." Darius smiled, remembering that same fear in Walter's eyes. "No problem," he said. "I'll help you figure it out." As he pulled out his phone to check directions, he caught himself smiling. It wasn't about paying anyone back anymore. It was about carrying the torch Walter had passed to him. The next weekend, Darius visited Walter's grave for the first time since the funeral. The headstone was simple: Walter H. Grayson, 1938 to 2024. A life lived in giving. Someone had left fresh flowers there. He placed the letter on the grave for a moment, then tucked it back into his jacket pocket. "You know," he said softly, "you were right. Money can build things, but kindness builds people." He stood there a little longer, hands in his pockets, wind brushing through the trees. There was no grand music, no speech, just a quiet moment between a boy and the man who believed in him. And maybe that's the point. The world doesn't change because of billionaires or headlines. It changes because someone stops their bike, asks if you're okay, and means it. So next time you see someone who looks lost, not just on the street, but maybe in life, stop. Talk to them. Listen. You never know who you're helping or how much that single act might matter. Because the truth is, the smallest moments often leave the biggest marks. If you took anything from Darius's story, let it be this: compassion costs nothing, but it can change everything. Don't walk past someone who needs a hand. Be the person who stops.